the good life is ever so often envisioned as ever more acquisition and consumption, tapping into the external resources of all kinds and then consuming them and then spitting out the waste. This is common knowledge now. But when we have 7 billion people, and many of them focusing on that ideal of the good life, let us consume more and more and more. Let us always go for a greater gross domestic product. Let us produce more, consume more, acquire more. Exactly how long do we expect our planet to tolerate that before it's simply depleted? So I think once again there's a moral imperative here, a global moral imperative. We have to think deeper. There's another aspect that is almost entirely overlooked in the modern world, and that is the power of consciousness. And it's simply not understood, the origins of consciousness. If you're a materialist, you basically can't think outside the box, other than the hypothesis that mind and consciousness somehow emerge from neurons, from matter, from chemicals and electricity. But really, if one pauses, that doesn't make any sense at all. Consciousness, upon very careful investigation, and it has been deeply investigated by contemplatives, is as fundamental to the universe as space, time, matter, or energy. I have a fairly extensive background in science. I was trained in physics, and as I mentioned, I've done a lot of collaborative research with neuroscientists and psychologists, and a lot of study of the history and philosophy of science as well. And what becomes obvious here is that the strength of modern science for the last 400 years, since Galileo, has been on studying with tremendous sophistication and penetrating insight the nature of the objective, physical, quantifiable world. We've made no comparable progress in understanding the nature of mind, of consciousness itself, even the most basic questions of defining consciousness, understanding what causes it. Does it have multiple dimensions? What actually happens at death? These questions remain utterly unanswered. That our knowledge of nature is so lopsided, so strong on the objective side, and so weak on the subjective side. So who in the history of humanity, what disciplines, what people, and it is the great contemplative traditions of the world, East and West, they all have great strengths here, which are really not paralleled or replicated by modern science. And so seeing this, and seeing this ongoing discord and lack of understanding between science and religion in the modern world, it strikes me that there are some major issues facing humanity, and that is the various religions in the world today understanding each other, but not only tolerating each other, but actually learning from each other, experientially, not simply learning each other's doctrines. So there are two themes here, and that is a much deeper interface, collaboration, shared research among the great contemplatives of the world in multiple traditions, East and West. There's one theme. And then the interface, the collaboration with mutual respect between scientists, rigorously trained psychologists, neuroscientists, and others with equally professionally trained contemplatives, so that they can complement each other, learn from each other, and we can start to heal the wounds self-inflicted upon humanity between science and religion, and from one religion to the other. These are big issues, and I think they're of enormous importance and of urgent importance. With these themes in mind, then I've conceived of a network of what I call contemplative observatories scattered around the world. And I've had in-depth dialogues with my primary teacher, His Holiness Dalai Lama, on this theme. So what I'm about to share is really coming out of our conversations. It's not simply mine, nor did I simply receive this from him, but through dialogue. And so the vision here is to create a network of contemplative observatories for which the primary purpose is to create facilities for long-term contemplative training and contemplative inquiry, again, into the nature of the mind, its potentials, its role in nature. So just as we have professionally trained neuroscientists, physicists, scientists of all disciplines, who will go through many, many years of full-time training, and then following that with many years of full-time research, but it's always third-person research that is looking outwards to the objective, the physical, quantifiable, to cultivate, to nurture a whole discipline which on the one hand is a very old discipline, but it's also faded out of human memory to a very large extent. And that is contemplation, meditation, can in fact be a very rigorous, replicable, sophisticated mode of inquiry itself, in which multiple contemplative traditions of the world can learn from each other, and they, in concert and together, can learn from the scientific community as the scientific community can learn from them. But unlike virtually all of the studies done thus far, not be the case that the scientists come in as the professionals, simply studying the brains and behavior and interviewing meditators as subjects, as they would any other kind of subject, but rather create these facilities, contemplative observatory, contemplative laboratory, if you like, where contemplatives are being trained so they are equally professional as the scientists who come. So when the scientists come to meet them, it's professionals meeting professionals. But now, as in many branches of science, then we take the insights that are gleaned from this collaborative research, the likes of which has never occurred before, and then we look for practical applications in the modern world. So we're dealing with qualities of mind, faculties of human mind, such as attention, metacognition, our ability to monitor our own thoughts, emotions, desires, to be vividly aware of this internal scene of our own minds, creativity, critical thinking. The training here is designed to enhance these qualities, the contemplative training. So then we can see, well, for your attention skills, metacognitive skills, your memory, your imagination, creativity, does this have any relevance for education? And it's not just the cognitive skills, but such contemplative training also is focusing on such qualities of the heart, such as empathy, loving kindness, compassion, equanimity. And so might this be relevant for mental health? These same qualities of emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, might this be relevant for business, for government, for every aspect of life? There also need to be some kind of nuclei that kind of hold it together. And so for this, there's a parallel vision of creating a smaller network of mind centers. A mind center is a place where shorter programs can be offered, lectures can be offered, classes can be offered, weekend, week-long, and even up to 8-week very intensive residential retreats can be offered, where scientists can come. They may learn to meditate themselves, but we're also brainstorming on how to practically apply the insights and the methods of the great contemplative traditions of the world to the pressing needs that face humanity today. For the last couple of years, I've been working quite intensively with a group based in the United Kingdom, looking to see whether we might create not only a contemplative observatory, but also a mind center. Let this be one of the primary nuclei right here in the UK. And happily we found a property that would serve us very well in this regard. It's on the Isle of Arran off the west coast of Scotland, just a short ways away from Glasgow, so it's very easy access. So this is one of those irons that is hot. If we can strike while it's hot, I think great benefit could come not only for Scotland, not only for Great Britain, but for the whole continent of Europe, because we have 500 million Europeans in the European Union, and any of them, anybody who's interested, could come there and go for 6 months, a year, and so forth, with no visa issues. And that is a real problem for people trying to meditate for sustained periods in foreign countries. Now that it is for sale and it needs very little renovation before we can move right in and start programs and have multiple teachers coming in there, it's really basically people gaining an interest in this place, and if that interest is sustained, then seeing how they can contribute in various ways. And of course, one very obvious one is the capital needs to be raised so we can acquire it, renovate it so it's perfectly suitable for our needs. And I would love to see the interest generated, not only among people of one particular contemplative tradition. I'm a Buddhist, and so Buddhism has a wealth to offer to such a network of mind centers and contemplative observatories, but no monopoly. The Hindus, the Sufis, the Taoists, the Christians, the followers of Kabbalah and the Jewish tradition, and so on. Each of these traditions, great contemplative traditions, has much to offer. So I would be really delighted if contemplatives, contemplative teachers from multiple contemplative traditions around the world, if they also kind of got ignited with the flame of this vision, but also not just people who are religious, but also scientists. This is our greatest untapped resource in the modern world. Contemplative Observatories, the mind centers, are designed to shed a bright light on the very nature of the mind, the focused mind, that has the capacity to fathom the very nature of consciousness and its role in nature, and to bring forth a bounty of benefits for the benefit of all of humanity.